Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're back here with another educational video. This time, as you can see, we are doing it on Gigantism. If you missed on my last one, we were talking about hibernation, and it seems like that one was just like a couple days ago for me. But now we are moving on. So, Gigantism, we are going to encompass Gigantism in humans, and then also deep sea organisms and also island organisms, because I could not find quite enough to just make one on each of those. So we're just scrunching them all together. So this might be a kind of longer educational video. But first off, what is Gigantism? It is also known as Giantism, and is characterized by an excessive growth of either height or size, and it's usually significantly above average. As an example, we have, I'm pretty sure he is the tallest known man, and it is Robert Wadlow, and he stood 8 foot 11 inches, which is pretty close to 3 meters. It's 2.72 meters. And I have a picture here of him, and standing next to, I don't know who that is, but excessively big, excessively. Now, Robert Wadlow, also known as the Alton Giant, and also the Giant of Illinois, was born on February 22nd, 1918, and he lived to July 15th, 1940, and he died at the age of 22. That is one problem with Gigantism, is usually it kills you pretty early on. But, like I said, he was the tallest person in recorded history, and his height was 8 foot 11 inches, and yeah, same stuff. His weight reached about 439 pounds, which is almost 200 kilograms, and it was caused by the hypertrophy of his pituitary gland. And just to elaborate on his height, I have a picture here that I think this is like either a wax museum or a Ripley's Believe It or Not or something like that, where they have a statue of Robert here, and we have Shaq standing next to him, which I'm sure most of you have heard of Shaq, know that he's extremely tall. Robert kind of made him look pretty small, if you see that. So that just elaborates how tall he was. So, hypertrophy. First off, hypertrophy is an increase in the volume of an organ or tissue due to the enlargement of its component cells. Now, this is different from hyperphagia, in which the cells remain approximately the same size but increased in number. So, here I have a picture of normal cells at the top. So we have 4 normal cells. And then the next one down, we have the hypertrophy, which you can tell that all these cells are quite a bit bigger, but there is the same number of them. Now, we have hyperphagia down here, where there are a lot of cells that are normal sized. So this is kind of 2 different ways that you can end up with like Gigantism, either more cells or bigger cells. And usually these frequently end up together. So a lot of people will usually have both of them. So they'll have a lot of bigger cells. Now we'll get into a little bit of the pituitary gland stuff here. I did not know much about it until now. But anyways, first off, let's look at the picture up here at the top. So the pituitary gland is right at the base of the brain, kind of next to the brainstem. And it is just kind of like a little ball or somewhat, a lobe there thing. It's very small. But it's an endocrine gland in vertebrates, and it's a ductless gland of the endocrine system that secretes hormones directly into the bloodstream. And like I said, it's located at the base of the brain. It's oval shaped, about the size of a chickpea, so pretty small. The hormones secreted from the pituitary gland help to control things like growth, blood pressure, energy management, all the functions of the sex organs. thyroid glands, metabolism, as well as some aspects of pregnancy, childbirth, breastfeeding, also water salt concentrations at the kidneys, temperature regulation, and pain relief. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of stuff. For something so small as that, secreting hormones that control all that stuff, if something goes wrong with it, then a lot can go wrong in your body. One of these things is the growth hormone, or GH, or it's some kind called somatotropin? Somatropin? Let's go with that. It's the human growth hormone. And this is the thing that causes you to have bigger cells and more cells and whatnot, and usually leads to gigantism. Now, here we have some other people that have a type of gigantism or something like that. So, one of these I think most people would probably know of is Andre the Giant, an extremely large man. And he was 7 foot 4 inches, and he's the picture at the very top there with his hand on the guy's face. Extremely huge hand. He is not to the extent of like Robert Wadlow, but he is still extremely tall, and he was more big than he was tall. That was one of the things. So it doesn't always have to be a tall, it could be large. There's also Sultan Kosin. I hope I said that right. He's the tallest living man at 8 foot 2.8 inches. So still really tall, and he's standing next to a telephone box in Britain. Then we have the tallest woman, which I don't think she's still living, but it's Xing Jinlin, and she was the tallest woman at 8 foot 1.75 inches. Sultan Kosin is, of course, the tallest living man right now, but Robert Wadlow was the tallest recorded in history. Then for Xing Jilin, she is the tallest known woman that's been confirmed, and she is not living, like I said. Okay. Still very tall people. Like, if you get, to 8 foot, oh my gosh. So, that is the end of talking about, human gigantism. Now, we have to talk about the deep sea gigantism, which I really wanted to talk about. Well, deep sea gigantism is a tendency for species of invertebrates and other deep sea living animals to be larger than their shallow water relatives. So, what do I mean by that? Well, there's some things like isopods and squids and stuff like that that are pretty small in the shallower waters, that whenever they get to the deep ocean, they get huge. So, the proposed explanations for these are 1. Colder temperature, food scarcity, reduced predation pressure, and increased dissolved oxygen concentrations in the deep sea. We'll go over some of those in a moment. So first, we have to get over some rules here of size and everything like that. Bergman's rule here is within a broadly distributed taxonomic clade, different populations of species and stuff, large size are found in colder environments, while populations and species of smaller sizes are found in warmer waters. So basically, you're going to find bigger stuff in colder environments and smaller stuff in warmer environments. That's basically Bergman's rule. It is only to certain species and populations, but it's broadly distributed. Now, large animals have a lower surface area to volume ratio. So as you get bigger, the volume inside of you, of course, grows at a much larger rate than your surface area does. So they radiate less body heat per a unit of mass. So the more surface area you have, the more heat you're going to lose. Whereas the more volume you have, the more you're going to keep in. So marine crustaceans increase in size with the latitude, and it's observed because decreasing temperature results in increased cell size, which also is increased lifespan and whatnot. So basically, marine crustaceans, whenever they go to a latitude where it is much colder, usually they will increase cell size and their lifespan also increases. That's basically the gist of that. Which both lead to increase in body size. So increased cell size and increased lifespan means you're going to be a bit bigger. We have another couple rules to go over. We have Kleber's law. Now, an animal's metabolic rate scales to 3/4 the power of the animal's mass. This applies to plants and animals. Now, we'll kind of go over this a little bit, and you don't have to you don't have to understand it completely, but it's one of those things I thought I should add. So, the animal's metabolic rate, the base metabolic rate is B in this, and then the animal's mass is M in Kleber's law. And I have an example here to kind of explain it. So, a cat having the mass 100 times that of a mouse. So, huge cat compared to a small mouse will consume only about 32 times the energy the mouse uses. So the bigger you are, the less energy you actually end up losing, because you're not losing heat, you're not having to keep up with a bunch of metabolism and stuff like that. Whereas a mouse has a much larger surface area to its volume, so it's going to be using a lot more energy and metabolism. So that's the main thing you gotta learn, is the bigger you get, the less you have to use energy-wise. Which kind of is weird to explain, but when you think of things like whales that are extremely large, they don't use as much energy as something that would be much smaller. We have another law to go over. This is one that I knew already ahead of time that I wanted to add in here. And this is one that if you took any science in school, you probably have heard of a little bit. And it's the square cube law. And as the dimensions increase, the volume will continue to grow faster than that of the surface area. This is what I'm talking about, that your volume increases faster than the surface area. So as the cube here, so length is on each side is 1. It doesn't matter if it's inches, feet, miles, whatever it is, it's 1. The area would be the length times width, which would equal 1. The volume would be length times width times height, which is still equal to 1. Now, if you multiply all those by 2, so instead it's 2 by 2 by 2, you'll get 4 for the area, and you'll get 8 for the volume, as you can see here. So that will show you how, as your surface area increases, the volume increases double. So that's why the volume is so much bigger than your surface area. Now we got all that figured out, and we got some of those laws under our belts, we can get to the fun stuff. Now, some of this deep-sea gigantism organisms that we're going to be looking at, one of my favorites being the giant isopod. I have a picture here up above, and we have some smaller isopods that are kind of like warmer waters, or maybe babies, I don't know. Then we have the large one there in the back. So, giant isopods are very abundant in the deep, cold waters in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. Whenever I did my deep sea videos and stuff like that talking about these, I think I talked about these being in like the twilight and abyssal zones and whatnot. They are ones that feed on anything that falls down, like marine snow and everything like that. Now, they are the largest isopods in the world, and as you can see, like from some of my other videos, I like roly-polies, which are isopods, and I like insects in general, which they're not considered an insect, they're a crustacean, but yes. Anyways, they are between 8 and 15 centimeters long, which, oh, that's not that big, you might say, or whatever. That is the giant species, okay? That is like 3.1 to 5.9 inches. Still pretty big, not super big, but there are supergiant species. Now, the supergiant species go between 17 and 50 centimeters, which is 6.7 to 19.7 inches long. That is extremely long for an isopod. And like terrestrial woodlouses, or roly-polies as you'd say, they have also the ability to curl into a ball, kind of like them. They are generalist scavengers, and they're mostly carnivores and feed on dead whales, fish, squids, whatever falls down. So going back to our whale fall videos too, these giant isopods would be also at whale falls. And like I said, they're scavengers that will basically eat anything that falls down. And they are known to survive for over 5 years without food when they're in captivity. So these things can go from like finding like a big whale to scouting around for years until they find another source of food. They're excellent. They're just excellent beings, and that's why they're one of my favorite isopods. Now we have another one here. So, as you can see by the picture up here, we have a very large, giant oarfish. Now, these fish, as you can see, are very long. I don't know how many people there are in the row, but very long. They have a worldwide distribution, excluding the polar regions. But other common names for these are the Pacific oarfish, king of herrings, ribbonfish, and also streamerfish. And they're sometimes known as earthquake fishes. That is because they are popularly believed to surface before and after an earthquake. So I think after some earthquake over in Japan, I think they ended up finding a big oarfish, and that's the reason why. I mean, there might be possibly other times where an earthquake has happened that they've come up to the surface, but that's mostly because whenever an earthquake happens, it also moves the water and the ocean below it, sometimes causing tsunamis and whatnot. It mixes up the water and causes sometimes deep sea things to come up. Now, their length can go between 8 meters, which is 26 feet, already big, to 11 meters, which is 36 feet long. And they're presumed to be responsible for some of the sea serpent sightings that people might see in the world. So, like, whenever you see things like, maybe not the Loch Ness Monster, but other things, like if you see, like, sea serpents or whatnot in the waters and things like that, they're believed, some of these believed to be oarfish, because they're extremely long. I can see why they'd be considered sea serpents. Ribbon-like shape, they have a ribbon-like shape, and it is laterally narrow, so they're very thin, and they have a dorsal fin along its entire body. So there's a fin along the very top of its body the whole way. And it's oar-shaped, given its name. Has the oar-shaped pelvic fins, or is why it gets its name, kind of. The organs of the giant oarfish are concentrated toward its head and the end of its body. So most of the time in the middle, it's not really anything there. So it possibly enables it to survive after losing large portions of its tail. And it also has no swim bladder. That's one thing that's kind of interesting about it. Okay, we have another deep sea organism that we want to talk about, is the colossal squid. Colossal squid is also possibly one of the things that people think the kraken is, or giant squids also. So it can weigh as much as like 600 to 700 kilograms, which in American units or pounds, it'd be 1,300 pounds to 1,500 pounds, making it the largest known invertebrate. Its maximum total length has been estimated to be between 9 and 10 meters, or 30 to 33 feet. That's an estimate, so it's not like a rule. And it's believed to be the largest squid species in terms of mass. It also is thought to have the largest eyes of any known creature ever to exist, with an estimated diameter of 27 centimeters or 11 inches in diameter. That is an extremely big eye, even considered things like whales and stuff like that. They are thought to feed on the Patagonian toothfish, and signs of the attacks have been seen on the fish caught aboard trawlers. So whenever they catch these fish on trawlers, sometimes they'll see like the hooks or the sucker imprints on these toothfish that show that colossal squids are definitely eating on those. There are also, these toothfish are also known as Chilean sea bass, mero, icefish, and Antarctic cod. We're not done with colossal squids yet. So, colossal squids are probably my first favorite gigantism organism in the ocean. They are thought to have very slow metabolic rates, needing about 300 grams or 1 ounce of prey daily. They don't need to eat that much to survive. and thought to be slow-moving ambush predators. So they'll like slowly move around the ocean, but they'll mostly wait for their prey to like swim by them, then they'll grab them. Colossal squids are a major prey item for sperm whales in the Antarctic. That's because whenever we found dead sperm whales, we'd look in their stomachs, and 14% of the squid beaks found in the stomachs of the sperm whales are those of colossal squids. And you might be thinking, oh, why do we know they're colossal squids? The beaks are bigger than giant squids. That, and also we could probably do DNA like typing on them, and you could probably figure it out too. Their first species was discovered in the form of 2 arm crowns that were found inside the stomach of a sperm whale in the winter of 1924 and 1925. So we never found a full specimen. We found, well, we have later, but initially we only found its 2 arms that were inside the stomach of a sperm whale. Now, as you can see in the back here, I have a picture showing an arrow squid about 1 meter. Then we have a giant squid that isn't that big in mass, but is pretty long. Then we have the colossal squid here that is pretty big in mass. You can see its head and everything like that is much bigger. And also is very long, which this one says 14 meters. But I know initially we said it was like 9 to 10 or something like that. So they're just extremely long. Like, say like 10 meters, and they could possibly go more because it's an estimate. Now, we're not done yet. We've gone over gigantism in humans. We've gone in deep sea organisms like the giant isopod and the oarfish, the colossal squid. Now, we go to island gigantism, which is a smaller portion of this video. It's not super long, but I feel like we should probably go over it just because I wanted to add all the stuff I could find from gigantism. So, island gigantism, also known as insular gigantism, is a biological phenomenon in which the size of an animal species isolated on an island increases dramatically in comparison to its mainland relatives. This is also Foster's rule, or island rule, or island effect, as members of a species gets bigger or smaller depending on the resources available. So Foster's rule kind of works with this, that things can get larger, but also it adds in that things can get smaller. The smaller being the pygmy mammoth. That is a species of mammoth that I forgot what island they went to, but since mammoths are big and they need a lot of, like, it's an herbivore. It needs a lot of, like, grasses and leaves and whatnot. So whenever it got to the island where there's not as much, it got smaller. So we got the pygmy mammoths. Now, many giant as well as other like island endemic organisms have become extinct. So organisms that are just found on islands and giant ones that are found on islands have become extinct because of the introduction of predators. So this isn't really one for a giant explanation, but the island endemics, that an example would be the dodo. Because the dodo, whenever we initially got to the islands, I think people ate them quite a bit. I can't remember for sure if that was partially caused by rats or cats that got introduced on the island too, but dodos did not have any like predators whenever they were on the island, and they couldn't fly. So whenever anything tried to go after them, they could just like try to run. So that's the reason why the dodo went extinct. Now, island gigantism continued, I guess. The causes of, like, island gigantism, I guess, are that large carnivores are often absent on islands because they aren't able to reach the islands. So, we don't see, like, tigers or, like, any big cats or anything like that, wolves or anything on islands, mostly because they can't get to the islands. Smaller things are easier to get there. But some of the things that can get to the islands are like birds, reptiles, or smaller carnivores, which these can then grow to larger than normal size. Some of these being like iguanas and stuff like that, getting extremely big. The small size usually makes it easier for herbivores to escape or hide from predators on islands, and the decreased predation pressure on islands can allow them to grow larger. So since they don't need to run away from predators, they just sit around. Like kind of like the dodo. The dodo it was a fairly big bird. It wasn't huge, but it didn't have to run from predators, so it could just sit around. So being on an island, not having to run away or hide, you just get big. Also, the decreasing vulnerability to food or water scarcity. So the smaller you are, the more often you have to find food and water because you use it up so much. That kind of goes to also the square cube law, where your surface area is larger than your volume. So the bigger you are, the more you can store. So you can store more fat, more water, and you don't have to find food or water as often. This could also be because of the founder effect. Because when a large members of a mainland population... okay, let me explain this a little bit better. So you have a big population here. I have a picture here in the bottom. So you have this big circle here with blue and red dots. So some of these can move to islands. So sometimes you might just get a few red ones that move to an island, kind of like right here. Right here. Or you could sometimes get blue and red. Blue and red, so you have like a mix of them. Or you could just get blues. So the founder effect could also just be that bigger ones moved to the islands, and they're the ones that made it there and survived. Or it could be because they're getting bigger. Either way. But I thought I should probably mention that because it might be partially because of that. So whenever big organisms are the only one that goes to the islands, they stay bigger. When small ones reach the islands, they stay small or could possibly get bigger. Who knows? So one of the big island birds, I guess, that you could find that's gigantism in Island is an extinct group of flightless birds that were formerly endemic to the New Zealand island. It is the largest species of those, Dinorhinus. I'm not going to try to say those, but they're there. The bigger ones were about 3.6 meters or 12 feet tall, so bigger than Robert Wadlow. That is insanely big. And they weighed around 230 kilograms or 510 pounds, so bigger and taller than Robert. And they're estimated to have a population when the Polynesians arrived to the New Zealand island to between 58,000 to approximately 2.5 million. That's kind of like a big jump there, but 58,000 on an island, still quite a few. 2.5 million is quite a few. And they're thought to be the largest terrestrial animals and dominant herbivores on the New Zealand island. But yeah, the Moa extinction occurred within 100 years after humans started settling on the island. So after the Polynesians arrived on New Zealand, they were probably overhunted and killed by the humans, which is sad. The closest living relative to these are the small terrestrial South African birds called the tinamous. So that's the closest living relative, and they're very small. So sadly, the moa are extinct, like I said. But yeah, that is all I had on Gigantism. I hope you guys enjoyed. This wasn't as... I had a lot of fun doing this, these slides and everything like that. I like talking about the deep sea gigantism, and I learned more about gigantism in general. That's why I do these videos, because I want to learn about stuff, and then why not make these so I can kind of offload my knowledge, and also could help other people learn stuff. So if you learned more about gigantism, or learned about different animals that have a form of gigantism, leave a comment or something like that. Or if I missed one that you think is cool, go ahead and send me a comment or something like that, because I would like to learn about them. One I did not add on here because I saw somewhere it said that it was a form of gigantism, and another place that it said it was not, was the Galapagos tortoises, which I kind of initially thought that they were a form of gigantism, but I found other places where it said it was not. So I did not add them on here because I didn't want to be fake news. But it is one of those things that are also cool tortoises to... They're just cool. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll try to have another one next month for you. I don't have anything planned right now, but I'll try to find something for then. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next educational video. So, bye!